us here today on this special episode of The Buzz on Dental Speaker Bureau's Facebook page. The Buzz is a program that brings you industry experts on different topics, and especially with the situation with COVID and the pandemic and dentistry and the challenges we're having right now in our world and certainly in our industry. I'm very excited to be able to introduce you today to Holly Ann Mitchell, who's joining us. Hi, Holly. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely excited to have you. Now, Holly is a speaker coach. She's a dental business coach and also a hypnotist for dentists. That's not one we hear all the time. She's a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming. And she also teaches dentists how to increase their case acceptance using hypnotic language patterns, which is fascinating. And I hope we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about that. But ultimately, really, we're here today to talk about how do we, as an industry, how do we cope with what's going on? How can we get ready to hop back, get on that road to recovery? So could you start us out, Holly, by maybe just letting us know a little bit more about you? You have a very interesting skill set. What led you to NLP and hypnotism?
It's a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
It's part of my story and part of my dental journey. So I moved to New York City to be an actress. That was the original plan. And 6 months after I graduated school, I found myself homeless and sleeping on couches trying to survive as an actor. And I was like, this is not working out so well for me. This wasn't the dream.
Right.
So I needed to pivot, and I thought I might be a dentist. I have really nice teeth, thanks to my orthodontist, Dr. Principe, shout out, from rural Central Florida. And I was good at math and science, so I thought maybe dentistry, right? So a friend of mine goes, why don't you work in a dental office? Go do that first and see if you like it, and then you can decide whether you want to be a dentist. And
Makes sense.
Yeah, great advice. So I called up a bunch of offices, and of course, nobody wanted to talk to me because I had no experience. But I found one office who would speak with me. So I went in a little practice, tiny little office on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I said, look, I'll work for you for free. You can train me to do whatever you want and then just start paying me. And so I started there as an unpaid intern at the front desk. And 2 weeks in, the doctor called me into his practice. And he said, I really want to grow, and I need to see a lot more new patients. What do you know about marketing? And I said, nothing. But
I'll learn.
I'll figure it out. Send me to a course, and I'll read some books, and we'll figure this thing out. So he made me the marketing director, and we doubled in size in the first year that I was there.
Wow. And
fast forward to 9 years later, I became CEO of that same organization. We grew into a multi-location group, and I learned all the ins and outs, every role in dental practice management, managed a team of 52 with 12 doctors. And along the way, I, like many of my dental cohorts, experienced some severe burnout.
I bet.
I really loved my
job. It's a big job.
It was a big job, like having 52 kids that you care a lot about. And I say kids, but most of them were older than me.
Yeah.
But they were my I loved them. I hired every single one of them. Yeah, they were my family. And so I had a burnout crisis, and my body and my mind were starting to have a lot of anxiety symptoms, chronic illness, and I realized I needed something to change. So I took all of my vacation time. I took 3 weeks off, and I enrolled in a level 1 neurolinguistic programming training because I knew I needed to fix my brain. I was having severe anxiety every day, like panic attacks in the shower, and I needed to learn how to change my brain.
Yeah.
And it changed my life.
Wow. So
Yeah.
neuro-linguistic programming. Now I know a little bit about that. I'm sorry. I'm just looking away to make sure we're live here on our where we want to be going. Yep, we're good. Now, oops, sorry. So I know a little bit about that from Tony Robbins. It's like
That's right.
my only time I've really had much to do with understanding it.
When they call me the Tony Robbins of teeth.
Oh, that's so adorable. That's adorable. Well, how wonderful that you were able to find your calling by listening to your gut. It sounds like. So let's shift to today. Okay, so you work with teams. Now you are really in the epicenter in New York. You're the epicenter
Yeah,
of our pandemic, and
yeah, in my Brooklyn quarantine
yeah.
right now. Yeah.
It's a crazy time we live in, and there's a lot of stress, you know. And what I'm finding is that as I talk to neighbors at a safe distance, or you know, talk to clients during the day, it's like we're all coming at it from a little different worry, but that's what I see continually is that there's worry, and um, you know, as coaches, I think it we naturally tend to be people who buoy others up. You know, we encourage and we give them insight, and we take it on as, you know, we feel a success when we can help our clients find that success. One thing I'm finding, Holly, is that I'm tired by the end of the day, where many times I'm enthused and excited at the end of the day, but I find that I'm feeling like I'm getting like a caregiver's fatigue. Just full transparency here, because I think I may not be the only one, as I know many of our colleagues are doing this, and I anticipate our planners out there are also feeling some fatigue. Do you have any words of advice for us on what we can do to care for ourselves during this time?
Absolutely. I have this amazing tool that I learned in my hypnosis training called havening. And there's a lot of neuroscience behind it. And it's so relevant in this moment of social distancing.
Can you
There's
tell us again, what was it called?
It's called havening, like
Haven,
haven, like a safe haven.
havening.
And the process, and this is what they do with trauma victims to reset your nervous system out of fight or flight. And it looks a lot like giving yourself a hug. And
Oh,
so if you start at the top of your shoulder and you move down and you want to give a little pressure.
oh,
So what happens when you're
that
in
is so good.
anxiety? It does feel good. And especially for those of us who maybe haven't touched anybody or had a hug in a number of weeks, there's a lot of science on giving hugs and how necessary they are for the brain.
How interesting.
And so you can do this in the shower, you can do this in the morning, and
On
you can
Facebook Live.
on Facebook Live, you can say things to yourself like, "You got this.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
mhm." And what's happening actually in the brain is you're changing the brain wave state. So when you're in fight or flight, what normally happens is your brain waves are operating at a fast frequency in the beta state. And so you need to downregulate your brain waves and downregulate your nervous system in order to get out of fight or flight and to feel like your best self again. Now,
Mhm.
somebody like me who had a panic disorder as a child, and so I was constantly in fight or flight because of genetics and childhood experiences that created these more sensitive triggers in my brain. I had to learn how to regulate my own nervous system using hypnosis and using NLP. So havening is a really great tool that you can use on yourself.
It
And it
really does feel good.
feels so good.
Never think to do this,
You can do it on your forehead too, as long as you sanitize your hands, which I
right?
sanitize
My
mine.
hands are clean. Think about your bangs, but so
And
what are you doing? You're just lightly stroking at the top of the forehead?
yeah, the same way a place where a mom would kiss a baby.
Oh, how interesting. Havening. It's a safe haven.
And it slows that brainwave frequency in the brain down into delta waves, which are the same waves that a baby has in the womb and the same waves that you have when you're sleeping.
So it's like meditation. Like sometimes when I go sit down to meditate, I'm like, my brain's on and it's like hard to shut it down. That would be some tools as well to help us like get our body to a calmer place so that we can then work on our mindset.
Yeah. It's we're having this collective moment of fight or flight right now, and this collective energy drain. And the reason this is happening is because we're pulled out of our normal patterns. Anytime we have a pattern interrupt, it's like government mandated neuroplasticity.
Mm,
We're suspended in this space where everything is new. It takes so much energy. They say anytime you move, like, you move your house, you move to a different location, it's, like, the most physically draining thing you could possibly do because all of your environment, all of your patterns and your habits are entirely new, and so it takes up so much brain energy in
right.
order to just get through the day. So we're all experiencing being pulled out of our patterns right now. But also, what happens when you're pulled out of your patterns is hypnosis. That's what hypnosis is. It's a pattern interrupt in your brain where you're suspended between who you were and who you're about to become.
How interesting.
This moment is incredibly important in the collective consciousness to ask yourself as you're pulled away from your identity habits, the things that you normally do that
Yeah,
you associate with who you are, like your job
right.
or your daily routines, and giving yourself space to say, who am I really
Mm,
outside of my patterns?
mhm,
And
mhm.
I don't know about you, but when I experienced this crisis in my life where I had to do a total reset and change everything in order to get happy and healthy, it's because I realized that I spent the first 29 years of my life living for other people. That my identity was based on patterns that were given to me by my parents, by society, and that I had to take that space, those 3 weeks,
Yeah.
to change myself and my brain and figure out who I really am, separate of my patterns, and what I want to give to the world.
Wow, that is so powerful. And you have such a presence, my friend. It's just like calming, calming, calming. So, for the dentist or dental practice owner out there, or team member who will hear this, or for the planner who would like to help the members of their organization, whatever type of organization, what words of wisdom do you have for the dental practitioner? I mean, certainly our dentists nationwide are in a very stressful time.
It's it everyone is, right? And I think that as we're isolated physically, this is the time for us to connect even more. I think that what life is asking for us right now is our presence and the way that we can contribute. And as dental practice leaders, reach out to your team. Don't send a mass email. Pick up the phone and call each one of them and check on them. Pick up the phone and call your patients and check on them, connect with them, listen to their voices, have them hear yours. They need your presence now more than ever. That's the leadership that you're being called to contribute.
Yeah. I have to, as a side note, say I've thought often in the last 2 weeks how there's so many wonderful things that are happening right now. With the changes and these shifts, we're all recognizing there's things we can be grateful for. One thing I'm recognizing is that we as boomers are becoming more technology masters. We're having to learn more to be able to stay connected. And also, like my children are millennials, right? So I'm at the tail end of boomer and in my life, at my age, and then my kids are millennials. I think that's a really big one, is that the younger people will really learn that value of picking up the phone. I had a phone call today, unexpected, from my business coach. And it was just so delightful to know that you're being thought of right now and just checked on. And I can't imagine that the team would not want to hear that. I'm sure team members are wondering what the future will hold for them. They don't have the control that we have as business owners, of our own destiny as much. If they're kind of, I anticipate it would be real normal as a team member to feel like you're really at the mercy of what happens with us going back to work and all that. So what a great way to keep your team united.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah. Let me just take a quick break and say, for those who are listening in, please just feel free to hop on and tell us hello. We'd love to know that you're here. If you have any questions for Holly, we'd love to know that. So talking about what we can do right now. So we talked about some tips for how we can calm ourselves in stress, how we can stay more connected with our teams. Is there anything else before we talk about moving to the road to recovery? Is there anything more that we need to do in this present moment that would be helpful to dental practitioners?
Absolutely. I don't know if you know this statistic, Vanessa, but dentists are one of the most likely professions to commit suicide.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And one of the things that puts people at risk, and this is one of my missions, it's the why I do what I do, um, because my father struggled with suicidal thoughts, and my brother had an attempt, and so this is deeply rooted in my experience.
Yeah.
Why I want to bring this work, this stress management, and a positive culture to dental teams. But one of the things that puts people most at risk for suicide is when they cannot envision a compelling future. And so I would say, even in this time of survival where we're just trying to get through the day and hour by hour, we have to be able to start to look beyond, look to the future. It's the best thing that you can do for yourself and for your team, to imagine your future self and say, what does my future self need from me in this moment so that we can all be okay? And we will.
Hmm. I love that. I think too, it's important to not get caught up in the news all day. I think it's important to separate from I think it's important to know what's going on, but we can get sucked in, just like we can be sucked into social media. There's becoming a lot of noise now on social media. And I think it's important to separate from that so that I can't change the big decisions. I can't personally create more PPE. I mean, I could create some masks, but like big things that we see out there, there's so much we can't control. But what you're saying is we can control our mindset, I think. And you could help me with this, but I think what you're saying is what we can do is we can just really think about what we have a pretty good idea that we'll be able to get back to dentistry, hopefully soon. What should we do to be preparing for that road to recovery? I like to think about it. I would love to be able to hop back on the horse at a gallop so we don't have to ramp up once we get the okay. What can teams and dental practice owners do now? What can meeting planners do now to help their dental practices?
I loved when you talked about mindset. It made me think of Stephen Covey's circle of concern and circle of influence in the
Yeah.
7 habits of highly effective people. And the circle of concern is those things that we can't control, right? The circle of influence are the things that we have direct ability to impact. And one of the things is ourselves and the way that we're thinking about what's happening and what will happen next. And the other is the relationships of the people right in front of us. And when it comes to our businesses, what's in our influence is our ability to strategize. So I would say there are two really important things right now when it comes to your strategy. And it's important to not go back as business as usual because the world may be different. So
Well,
we might have to get creative, right? First thing is strategic scheduling. So if you're able to add capacity for hours to be able to see more patients, to go ahead and start planning for those shifts, those additional shifts, so you can make back the revenue. And then looking at your scheduling and prioritizing productive procedures, setting a daily goal, and now doing your outbound reach, right? Letting your patients know we're going to start scheduling in May. We want to make sure we have appointment times available for you. Let's go ahead and find a time for you. And then blocking out those most productive procedures first, your rocks, so
yes.
that you covered your overhead expenses for the day, and then you can add in your pebbles and sand after the fact. So scheduling for success is a really, really crucial thing to think about right now, how to maximize your revenue. And then also revenue per patient. And that comes from case acceptance.
Mm.
That comes from training your team to have an incredible patient experience that makes people likely to say yes. And making sure that you've got really flexible financial options so that you can say yes to more people and they can say yes to you.
Yeah. So let's unpack that because those are some really great ideas and there's a lot there. Okay, so and my understanding, we're now end of March for those who are watching this later, end of March 2020, almost the end. My understanding is dentists nowhere in the country are dentists actively practicing as long as they're listening to what the ADA has asked them to do. I mean, they would be emergencies only. So this applies to everyone then. We have a lot of teams at home. So what we've been suggesting, and I'd love to hear if you have a different idea, if you feel this is the right idea, but it feels like it's a great time for virtual learning and a great time to still pull your team together, to still have a weekly team meeting or to have some kind of an ongoing, stay in touch with your team, but also educate. What a great time to learn some of these newer approaches that would maybe new for your team or to polish their skills, to stay connected to this. One thing you had mentioned was the hypnotic language patterns and
Mhm.
case acceptance. I thought that's really interesting. And I don't know that, that something like that would probably be a great thing to start teaching before we get back to the office. Are we on the same page with that? Is that how you're seeing?
Definitely, definitely. And I've actually got a free webinar available for teams called How to Overcome Any Objection. And when
Awesome.
I think about case acceptance, there's always going to be a certain portion of the patient population that say yes to you just because they vibe with you, right? They might be like you. They might have already come preheated
Yeah.
because they were referred to you.
They've
So
got the money. They see the value. Yeah.
yeah, they're ready to say yes, right? And then there's people that are on the fence and they need to be warmed up. And that's where relationship based patient experience comes in really handy. So, how are we at building rapport and facilitating those conversations in alignment with the patient's goals and really listening to our patients? And then you've got your patients who everybody thinks, well, that patient just doesn't value dentistry. They're closed off, right?
Mm.
So I talk about case acceptance like baking cookies. So you've got to preheat the oven, right? You
Yeah.
can't bake cookies in a cold oven. The
Right.
cookies are your case acceptance. So sometimes your patients come in preheated, right? And then just don't screw it up. Your cookies will be just fine. Then you've got patients who need a little warming up. We've got to have a good relationship. We've got to make them feel good, right?
Right.
And then you've got your patients where you're trying to preheat the oven and nothing's happening.
Mm.
And no matter what you do, that patient seems like they're cold. They're a block of ice, right? Their
Most
oven's turned off.
Mhm.
And so what a lot of practices do is, well, that's a D patient, or that patient is not open to dentistry. There's nothing we could have done. And in reality, what happens when your oven doesn't turn on? Well, you got to light a pilot light, right? The pilot light is out. You need a match, which is a totally different type of conversation. And it's very hypnotic and super fun when you can learn how to take somebody from being completely closed off to being open to dentistry. And you can do it in one visit, in
Mhm.
one conversation.
Mhm.
It's a totally different approach. And that's what I teach people how to do in my program.
That's so fascinating. So it's really verbal skills we're learning that have a certain desired outcome to them, but utilizing, is it neurolinguistic programming or is it or hypnosis?
It's both. So it's neurolinguistic programming in rapport building skills. So if you've ever been exposed to Tony Robbins or NLP, it's all about influence, and you can use mirroring, body language, tone of voice to make people feel comfortable with you. Active listening skills, repeating back what you're hearing as well. And a lot of these things, if we're people, we have naturally, right? We have these natural people skills. So that's the NLP piece, is that rapport building. And then when you combine it with what's called Ericksonian language, and Milton Erickson is the father of hypnotherapy, and he had all of these pattern interrupt tools in his toolbox. Some of them were humor. Some of them were saying something confusing or bizarre. But what happens is you short circuit their brain, because if the patient is in a pattern like this, where they're cold and closed off, if you're able to interrupt that pattern by doing something completely unexpected out of the ordinary, you've created a window
Yeah,
of
yeah.
influence. And then you can turn the ship around and make them more open to dentistry, start heating that oven, start having that connection again, and then we can facilitate case acceptance.
That's so fabulous. And of course, all this for the purpose of helping the patient, or at least helping them be open to evaluating so that they can choose, hopefully, optimal dental health, which of course relates to overall health. So that's really powerful. Now, I heard you mention in there that you have a webinar or something is it available on your website?
Yes, if they go to LeadWellNetwork.com,
Huh?
they can download the webinar, How to Overcome Any Objection. And it teaches them my favorite verbal gymnastics tools on what to say if your patient says common objections like, I'll think about it, or I need to talk to my spouse, right? We hear these things all the time. Well, now you're going to have more tools in your toolbox to be able to help more people say it.
So when we're here, do we go, is it the one on the homepage that says sign up for a free course?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Which it's such an adorable website too. Great photos.
Thank you.
LeadWell. So this is www.leadwellnetwork.com, and on the homepage we have a picture of Holly. Sign up for a free course. Thank you for offering that too. By the way, now is the time for speakers and consultants to really share their knowledge. You know, I think that's how we can best help and really lead and help guide our industry to recovery, which I have no doubt dentistry is going to come back strong, because we have like the most awesome people in the whole world are in dentistry, in my biased opinion.
So and everybody's got teeth.
And everybody's got teeth.
There's an abundance of teeth.
Yeah. I know I want to keep my teeth. There are a whole lot of teeth. Yeah. So, okay. So we've talked about, where we're at now. We've talked a little bit about how to get to on this road to recovery. So one thing we've talked about is using the time now to learn some of these additional skills. We see there's a lot of information out there, and really a lot of great information is coming at people at a very low price or free. What other tips do we have? Are there other tips for the dental practitioner, the meeting planners, about moving forward and into this road to recovery as far as it relates to your topics? I'm just digging to see if there's anything we didn't cover.
I think it really comes down to working on your core processes. One of my favorite books on operational success is called Traction by Gina Wickman. And in the book, Gina Wickman talks about the importance of your playbook in order to be able to scale your business and have sustainable growth and predictable results. Because sometimes with practices, we have these rock star team members, and that's our system, right? Our system is our team member, because they just know how to do everything and they do it. But then, what happens if they're not there, or they call in sick, or we need to scale, we need to add locations. So now's the time to look at what is your recipe for success, right? What gets you baking cookies? What's your playbook? And start to document and train your team in those processes so that they're done consistently over and over, every patient, every time. And that's going to help you scale and grow.
Absolutely. And can I add one more thing to that too, is that, thank you. As we are moving on this road to recovery, if there's never been a better time for, like, fill in the blank, a million things right now, right? Really, literally, there's never been a better time for working on our website, writing our standard operating procedures, training the team. One thing, I mean, and we could probably list a couple dozen things just right off the top of our head. One thing that has occurred to me is, for me personally, it's never been more important for me to work with a business coach. I think that what happens sometimes is we worry about money. We go to like cutting expenses, and I know that some practices have let go of that expense, and I'm not judging anyone. I'm just wanting to put out there as a thought. The whole reason I work, and I actually have 3 business coaches, 3 different parts of my business. Like, for instance, someone who helps me with my speeches, someone who helps me with organization and like our Jumpstart conference, someone who helps me just overall with my business. There was a reason I hired them to start with. And that was because I need outside eyes on my business, and because they have years of experience that I don't have. And so I just want to insert in here to any dental practitioner who's listening. You're most likely your consultant that you work with, your coach, your mentor, is going to help you through this time. I would not be cutting ties right now, because right now is the most important time to lean into those experts, those thought leaders that we work with, those business coaches like Holly, the business coaches for someone who helps me with like people who put together events. I mean, we really need to have that in our life right now. And also, I think it's a really important time for our associations, our societies, our study clubs. I think it's a time for all of us as event planners, as well as speakers and consultants, to really step up and lead, and to be able to share, just like you've led today, Holly. You have such a calming presence. I think you are in exactly the right place where you need to be as far as what you do for a living. And I love the wisdom that you shared with us. You clearly know a lot about neuroscience. We really haven't talked much about that. Maybe we can, after we get right now we're in the Yahtzee Cup, and we're going to get thrown out, and we'll figure out what's left. And once we get out of limbo, we head back to work. I'd love to have you back again to talk more about the science behind this. And, when we know more, there's no doubt life is going to be different. There's going to be an after it's different. It can't be the same. And I want to encourage everyone to lean into the fact that that's actually kind of wonderful. There was things that we wanted to change.
I hope it's okay for me to share the conversation you and I had.
Sure.
A couple.
I don't know which one it is, but sure.
We were talking about this time and how it has so many challenges for so many people. And I have this saying, and it's allow your shit to become your fertilizer. To help you and others to grow. I mean, I've been through a lot of shit in my life. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
And we all have. It's
Yeah.
part of the human experience. And I wouldn't change a thing, because those were the moments where I learned who I am and what I have inside of me. Yeah. And I developed my resilience and my adaptability and my creativity that has got me to where I am today. So I don't know who you will be. I don't know who I will be after all of this shit has settled. But I think some really awesome things are going to bloom for our industry. I really do.
I do too. Absolutely. There's no doubt. And on that note, I want to thank you for being here. I'm feeling really inspired. It was very helpful and very exciting to hear about your programs that feel really unique. I know that, and we're not really here today to talk a whole lot about hiring Holly. We're really here more to help nurture and guide the industry. But the unspoken obvious thing here is that you do have speaking programs. You do offer consulting programs. I would encourage the meeting planners who were also who feel like they would also like to be a member of Holly's tribe. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. and who also feel like they'd like to bring her to work with their organization. I'm sure you have, I'm just like making assumptions here, but you likely have virtual programs for during this time with our meetings being a little different, being mandated to not be in person. But visit dentalspeakersbureau.com and you can find Holly Ann Mitchell. Just look up her name in our list of speakers as alphabetical Holly Ann Mitchell. You could reach out to her through her LeadWellNetwork.com website. What is your email, Holly?
Holly, HOLLY, at LeadWellNetwork.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you have any questions, you can also reach out to me, Vanessa Emerson, founder of Dental Speakers Bureau. I am at info@dentalspeakersbureau.com. And I'm sure we'll be meeting here on Facebook again with you, Holly, here in the not too distant future. Thank you so much for sharing today. Was there any final thoughts, or I felt like your last comments were really a great tie and a bow on it for us.
Just take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
And take care of your team and your patients.
Yeah. And you too. Be well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Until next time, everyone, be well.
Be well. Thank you.